Welcome to Specific Love. Today I want to do a little experiment. I want to see if I can get a beautiful bandsaw box out of a basic benchtop bandsaw. Let's begin. I recently took a class over at Woodcraft where I took a bunch of layers of wood and we turned it into an awesome bandsaw box. The gentleman who taught us was named Chuck. He did an awesome, great job at just teaching us all the techniques and showing us a bunch of tips and tricks with the bandsaw. Now the bandsaw that we were using was a $1,200 machine, which I know is far out of the range of most people working in their home shop. So the question is it possible to get a very similar outcome and design using a much smaller benchtop bandsaw? Now the box I made in the class is made up of walnut on the outside, some birch plywood here, and some Baltic birch in the center here, just to give it a bunch of contrasting colors. So I'm going to be using some hardwood as well. I believe this outside is Chechen, and the inside is Paduk, and I have just some real thin 1/4 inch hardwood plywood, just to give it a little bit of an accent. So first up, let's glue this together. Now I give a moment for that glue to dry. I want to tell you a couple things about this bandsaw. If you've never used a benchtop bandsaw, well, it is very limited in height. For example, the one I used in the class was 14 inches tall. That's a lot of cutting space. And if you look here, this is just a little over 3.5. This is the box I cut in that class. It won't even fit in here. So the box I'm going to be cutting with this is going to be very similar in size, but it will have to be slightly smaller. And number two, this bandsaw does not come with a fence. So I have a nice straight 2x4 to line everything up and clamp it down. Now that everything's glued together, I sanded down one side to make it nice and flat, and then we're going to use the miter saw to trim off all the edges to make sure everything is nice and square. Now that I have everything square and smooth, I drew out a little template to mimic the other one so we can get as close as possible. Now to keep everything even, I'm using the same TPI and size of the blade, which is 1/4 inch and 6 TPI as the large bandsaw. But this is much smaller and I don't want to overpower the motor, so I'm going to have to go much slower. So we're just going to take our time and get this done. We're going to first start by cutting out this bottom section and then go around the top and cut out all the excess. Alright, two little things I've picked up after making these cuts. One, this blade is cut a heck of a lot slower, but it still does an okay job so far. But the dust collection on here, well, just doesn't do any justice. So you're going to have to constantly get this dusted off to keep everything clean so everything moves nice and smooth as you cut. Alright, next up we need to cut a back section off of this box. To do that, we need a fence. Unfortunately, on most of these smaller bandsaws, they do not come with a fence. So I'm going to use a 2x4 that I know is straight. We're going to line everything up along these edges here so we can get it straight as possible, clamp it down, and then we're going to cut the back off. One other thing I've noticed about this bandsaw is the table, or the lack of area in front of the blade. In this case, I'm going to actually have to lift up on the back of this box, trying to keep everything nice and level until I can finally reach this surface back here, and then I can finish the cut. Just because it has all this open area underneath, it makes it a little more difficult. In the process of making this cut, I think I overpowered the motor. It actually stopped right here for some reason. I'm gonna see if I can turn it back on and maybe we can finish the cut, otherwise I'll have to investigate. I'm not sure if you can hear it, but the motor's on, but it is not moving. Oh, there we go. Alright, there we go. We cut out the back, and if you can look real close, you can see here that this is still pretty rough of a cut. And on the big bandsaw, this was almost flush. This is a little bit wavy, but I think we can work with it. The next step is we're going to cut out the center here. Unfortunately, since this is a little bit uneven in the back, you can see it moves just a little bit. We're just going to have to be very careful and hold this as steady as possible as we cut that out. Okay, I believe we just had a major failure. If I'm guessing correctly, the blade just broke in the process of cutting this, so let's check it out. Oh yeah, see that? And unfortunately, I do not have another 1/4 inch blade. I do have an 1/8 inch blade, so we're gonna swap over that and hopefully continue with this. Alright, I'm gonna try and fish this out to keep from damaging the project, see if that's possible. Not so easy. Alright, there we go. Alright, the blade that came off was a 6 TPI, and the blade that I just put on is a 15 TPI. It's a big difference, so I'm sure there'll be a little bit of a difference in cutting style, but we're just gonna give this a shot. It's going in a lot easier than it came out. Alright, here's a comparison. The outside of the 6 TPI is a lot rougher than the 15 TPI. I kind of suspected that. Let's check out the inside here. Yes, the 6 TPI is real rough. The 15 is a lot smoother. The thing about it is that this 6 TPI cut a heck of a lot faster than the 15. But the 15 will require less sanding. So if you're going to use a small benchtop bandsaw, you might want to look at using the 15 TPI. Alright, now we're going to attach the backing back onto the back of the box. Too many backs in there, can't you tell? So we're going to put a little glue here and clamp everything together. We don't want to add too much glue to this because you don't want a ton of squeeze out, but a little bit's okay. Now it's time to cut off a back and a front section off of the actual drawer. And to do that, we've set out the temporary fence again, and then we're just gonna carefully slide it through. Unfortunately, this back side is still real rough, so I'm gonna have to be careful and make sure everything stays in the best of alignment as possible and not move around too much. On the front side, it's nice and flat, so we don't have to worry about that. Now that we have the front and back cut off, I've taken a pencil and just hand drew just a mark right along the inside of where I want the inside of my drawer to be. Now I'm going to cut this inside out, and then we'll glue the front and back on. Now that we have the center section cut out, and believe it or not, that is just scrap wood, we have what looks kind of like a canoe. And we're going to glue the front and back on so it looks more like a drawer. Now for the drawer handle, I'm going to use a piece of poplar. It's light, and I think it'll really contrast against the darkness of the drawer. Next up, it is time for sanding, and I mean a bunch of sanding. This is the boring part. I'm going to use a belt sander, a disc sander, and even hand sanding. On the outside of the box, you don't have to be too concerned about going too deep as long as you don't go too thin. You want it to be nice and smooth, and you want the bottom to be flat all the way across. For the actual drawer though, you want to sand it down some, but if you sand it too much, then there's going to be a lot of slop in there, and it just will not feel natural. So just be careful, mainly on the drawer, and make everything look nice. And at this point, if you still have the paper on the front, it's a good time to sand it off. Now that we've done a bunch of sanding, it's starting to look pretty good in there. There will be a few grooves here, and on the bottom that I'm not gonna tackle right at the moment, just because if you look when it is fully assembled, there's already a decent gap at the top. If I do a bunch more sanding on the top and bottom, this gap will get much larger and just will not look good. I'm just gonna live with that as is, so we're gonna take and now attach the handle. Now while that handle is drying, here's a couple things we've learned. First off, it is definitely possible to do a bandsaw box on a benchtop bandsaw. But there's a couple things you got to keep in mind. It is definitely a slower process, and if you go up higher in the TPI on the blade, that will slow you down even more. It makes it a little smoother on the cuts, and you don't have to do as much sanding, but you could double, maybe even triple the amount of time you're going to need for actually cutting everything out. Now, would I recommend this for you if you're just going to make one box? Yeah, this could work for you. But I would not recommend this if you're planning on making a bunch of boxes and selling them or just giving them away as friends. It's just not set up for that type of a process. But overall, it is a good way to make a bandsaw box. Alright, here's the box I made with the expensive bandsaw, and here's the benchtop bandsaw. and they look pretty close. You can see from the side profile, this one is a little bit bigger and just slightly taller, but overall, they're pretty similar in size. Inside here, both of them still need what they call flocking. Flocking is like a black suede material you put on the inside and on the interior of the box here so that everything can slide real nicely. But overall, in both cases here, they came out pretty nice. All right, if you like this type of video where we're showing the more expensive tools versus the more affordable tools, let me know in the comments. I kind of enjoyed doing this and I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. Either way, get on your shop and have fun building. Well, removing too much material, and I just stumbled all through that. But I think you can cut that. Here's, you don't be, dang it. Out of a basic bench top. Try it again. I hate it when stuff's in your way. You want to try and film?